As a rabbi, I have the pleasure of celebrating lots of different life cycle events. People usually think about the big events, weddings, birth, b'nai mitzvot, the things you celebrate at shul with the rabbi often. But one of my favorite things to celebrate with families, with couples, are anniversaries. Especially the big ones, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And when I talk to couples, when I call them to celebrate an anniversary, to wish them a mazel tov, I always like to ask how they met. And I love the different stories that I hear. I love a good, cute meet. And I've heard almost every version of every story. So if you think you have a really unique one I haven't heard before, please find me, share it with me. I want to hear it. But I've heard a friend introduced us. We met at a Hillel event. It was a blind date a coworker set up. Or one of my favorites, we met at a party at a cottage, only to the next day find out we were on opposite legal counsel on a case. We met at camp. They came up to me at a park or a restaurant. Or another good one, he went out with my sister. Didn't really work, but we hit it off. I love those stories. Today, when I meet with young couples preparing for their wedding, the stories I hear are almost always the same. We met online. Often we met on an app. It's how my wife and I met. Our 5th wedding anniversary is coming next month. And I am so thankful that I'm not on those apps, because I know how difficult it is to be out there today dating, looking for your other half, your beshert. It's brutal on those apps. Besides waiting to see if someone's going to swipe left or right on you, one of the things that I found most difficult is you have to write about yourself. You have to describe yourself, share who you are with a stranger. You want to be honest, or at least you should want to be honest. You'll get caught pretty quickly if you're not. If you say you're 6'3", but you're just barely 5 feet, they're going to notice. Reminds me, it's totally unrelated, but for the record, I'm 6'2". It's a very, very tall podium we have here at the Bima, and an optical illusion. The apps are only going to get worse when they're ready for it. I remember how I described myself. Not the exact words I used, but a couple of the things that I remember is I said I was outdoorsy. I said I was a reader. And I believed that. They were part of my identity. And the truth is, I do read a lot. I love reading. And I love that it's a big part of my job and what I do as a rabbi. But there was a time when I read not just for work. I didn't just read articles about halacha, sefarim for insights on the parsha, or books on psychology and culture for sermon material. There was a time when I could just pick up a novel and sit and read it in an afternoon. Gone are those quiet Shabbat afternoons. With 3 children, the oldest is 4 and the youngest is 3 months. Shabbat afternoons aren't so quiet anymore to sit and just read a novel for hours and hours. But even long after my life has changed, I still think of myself as a reader. It's because it's part of the ideal me, the me I want to imagine myself to be. Same with outdoorsy. I think of that as part of my identity. When I was a rabbinical student in California, I'd go camping often, all year. I'd take my dog Spinoza on hikes regularly. Sometimes we would just go and spend an afternoon at the park where I could find a quiet bench to read and he could run around. Over the summers, I worked at Camp Ramah, and I ran and directed the ropes course, the climbing wall, and the camping trips, helping to take hundreds of kids at a time sometimes to these different campsites. My name badge one summer literally said Rosh Outdoors. So I think it's fair to call myself outdoorsy. And yet, I haven't hiked in years. I haven't camped since I don't know when. And if my wife hears me refer to myself as outdoorsy, she rolls her eyes Because the most you've seen me interact with nature is jumping at a shadow in our basement because I thought it was a spider. The person who knows me most would never describe me as outdoorsy. And yet these are part of my identity. They're part of who I think I am. And that distinction is what I want to talk about today. We all carry parts of an identity that is less who we are, and perhaps sometimes more who we used to be. And even more often, who we wish we were. One of the central ideas of this day is that our tradition asks us to look at ourselves honestly, to see who we really are. In the liturgy, we ask God to remember us, to write us in the book of life, to give us a good year. But we can't ask God to remember us until we remember ourselves, until we examine ourselves deeply and honestly. In the Torah portion today, God calls to Abraham, and what does Abraham reply? Hineni, here I am. He knew where he was, but more importantly, he knew who he was. And because he knew who he was ready to fulfill his purpose. He was ready to serve, he was ready to act. How many of us can answer the same? How many of us can say Hineni, here I am? How many of us can answer here I am rather than here is where I wish I was, or who I wish I was? I think our parsha is contrasted well with Parshat Bereshit. In the story of creation, God calls to Adam in the garden and asks, Ayeka, where are you? Adam doesn't answer, Hineni, here I am. Instead, Adam hides. But the rabbis teach us in the Midrash, you can't hide from God. Adam wasn't hiding from God, he was hiding from himself. How many times for us are we the same? Not answering like Abraham, but like Adam. Hiding from who we are. We create stories, we rationalize, we justify the parts of ourselves that don't live up to the ideal image of ourselves. The version that lives in our minds rather than living in our moments. The Midrash teaches that God's question to Adam, Ayeka, was just rhetorical. God didn't want to know where Adam was. God wanted Adam to recognize where he was. God wanted Adam to confront his location physically, spiritually, morally. God asks us that very same question, not just today on Rosh Hashanah, but each and every day of our lives. Ayeka, where are you? And the invitation we have then is a choice to answer either like Avraham, Hineni, here I am. I'm not perfect, but I'm present. I'm not finished, I'm still becoming, but I'm on a path. Or to hide. To hide like Adam did. These holidays, the central theme is teshuva, repentance. We ask God and each other for forgiveness, but the first step of teshuva isn't to say, I'm sorry. It isn't to offer an apology. That's step 2. The very first step of the process of teshuva is honesty. Naming what we did, where we fell short. And that's hard. Because the truth about honesty is that nobody's honest all the time. The truth about honesty is that everybody lies sometimes. And the person we lie to the most is ourselves. Psychologists know this. People trying to lose weight underreport what they eat. They overreport how much they exercise. Even in their own apps, their own personal tracking. Not that they're sharing or posting or sending to friends or others, just to themselves. It happens with money. We forget the small purchases we make. We underestimate what we spend. We overestimate what we save. We recall events from our past, picturing ourselves as the hero, the star of the story, and others as the villain. We see our own misdeeds in the best possible light. and we cast others' actions against us in the worst. We imagine lots of quality time we may spend with those we love. But we should ask ourselves how much of that time is spent perhaps next to someone while we both look at our own separate screens. We hold tightly to moments of generosity and forget all of the times in our life when we looked away from someone in need. Teshuva is a gift. It's a gift our tradition gives us. It tells us that we don't have to live in just our past mistakes, that is not what defines us for tomorrow. But the only way to move forward is to be honest about where we are coming from. To be able to say, Hineni, here I am, to know where on that path we fall. It's the only way we can be honest about where we have to go. W.H. Auden once wrote, "The image of myself which I try to create in my own mind in order that I may love myself is very different from the image that I try to create in the minds of others in order that they may love me." The poet captures perfectly that each of us has a version of ourselves that we picture for who we are. And we have another version of ourselves we want to show others. And the truth is that who we really are is neither of them. It's something else entirely. Teshuva tries to heal that split, to collapse those illusions, the ones we sell ourselves and the ones we sell others. Teshuva is the process to honestly look at ourselves and see who we really are, whole and imperfect. Or in other words, human. In our Machzor, we repeat Hayom, today. Hayom, today. Because today is the day to begin. Our time is precious because our time is short. We'll say it later in the Musaf repetition, Unatana Tokef. We read the haunting words, who shall live and who shall die? A reminder that our days on earth are numbered. That some of us may not be here in this room next year. And yet we each want to act and imagine that we have infinite tomorrows, infinite opportunities to become the person we want to become. And today, we can spend another day maybe living in that joyful ignorance. But our time is limited, and we have to spend the time we have in the right ways. The journalist Winifred Gallagher was diagnosed with cancer a number of years ago, and she made a decision when she received that diagnosis. She said she was going to focus her attention not on her illness, but on her life. Following that, she spent years researching and writing a book, looking into attention. In her book, it's a wonderful book I encourage others to read, but it teaches, in essence, a simple and profound truth. Who you are is what you focus on. Who you are is what you focus on. How we spend our time makes who we are. We may have an identity of outdoorsy or being a reader, but if we don't spend our time going outdoors or reading, can we really call ourselves that? Our time is limited. We have to choose carefully what we attend to. We'd recognize it as irresponsible for someone to spend money without a budget. Doesn't mean every purchase, every dollar and penny that comes in has to be put into an account and logged into QuickBooks and Quicken. But if they had no concept of how much money was coming in and how much money was going out at all, we'd see that as irresponsible. Time is an even more precious commodity, and yet how many of us really don't take the time to think about how we spend our moments, how we spend our minutes, our hours, our days, our weeks, our months, and our years. The point isn't that we should feel an extra pressure, but we should recognize the things that matter. Our actions reflect who we are. So this Rosh Hashanah, during these Yamim Noraim, I ask each of us to think about these questions, to ask who is the ideal version of ourselves, and to ask ourselves if we're living up to it. Are we the parents we want to be, the spouses we want to be, the children, the siblings, the friends, the professionals that we want to be? We each carry an image of who we are. We have to examine our time and ask ourselves, does how we spend it really reflect that? The truth comes out when we actually do. We may say we are family people, but when we're with our family, are we really present? Or are we lost in a screen or another device? Are we checking the news, answering one more email, returning one last phone call? We say we're loving partners, but do we speak with patience and kindness at the end of a long day? Or do we save that best version of ourselves in those words for strangers and colleagues? We say we're good friends, but are we the ones who make the call, who take the time and the effort to check in, to show up for others even when it's inconvenient? Do we wait for them to reach out? We say we are proud Jews, but do we deepen our Jewish lives with learning, with practice, with showing up in community? Or is our Judaism just something we're proud of, part of an identity we wear outside, but doesn't reach deeper in? Is it part of our lives? We say we're hardworking, dedicated professionals, but at what cost? Do we pour ourselves so fully into our work that there's little left for there's little time left for the people and the values that really are our identity? The call to teshuva is an invitation to answer these questions honestly. Hayom, today. Today, in this moment, God calls to us as God called to Adam and Abraham. It's up to us to decide, are we going to hide from who we really are? Or are we going to answer, Hineni, here I am? I invite each of us this year to pick one area of our lives where we'll stop hiding. One area where we can answer fully, Hineni, here I am. Maybe in our marriages, maybe with our children or our parents, maybe within ourselves, a piece of our identity that we value, that if we answer honestly, we'd recognize we've neglected, we've let it fall aside. This holiday, let us each say, Hineni. I'm not perfect, but I'm present. I'm not finished, but I'm aware of the work I have to do. I'm not hiding from who I am, but I'm walking a path towards my full potential. I want to wish each of us a Shana Tova, a happy, a healthy, and a sweet new year. Shana Tova.